You are one decision away from a completely different life. Just one. And I know that sounds dramatic, but stay with me because I mean it. Right now, in this very moment, there is something you're doing, something so small, so automatic, that is holding you back. It's stealing your time, draining your energy, and keeping you stuck in the same cycle over and over again. Maybe you feel like no matter how hard you try, nothing really changes. You set goals, make plans, but somehow you always end up right back where you started, frustrated, exhausted, wondering why everyone else seems to be moving forward while you're still standing in the same place. I get it. I've been there. And I'm here to tell you something powerful. The reason you feel stuck isn't because you're not smart enough, strong enough, or disciplined enough. It's because of one thing, one toxic habit that's running your life without you even realizing it. And if you stop doing it today, everything changes. So, are you ready? Because what I'm about to share is going to shake you awake. It's going to feel uncomfortable. But on the other side of that discomfort, that's where your breakthrough lives. Let's dive in. You are addicted to overthinking, and it's quietly destroying your life. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You spend hours, maybe even days, analyzing a decision, going over every possible outcome, every worst-case scenario, every tiny detail that could go wrong. You tell yourself that you're just being responsible, that you're thinking things through, but in reality, you're paralyzing yourself. And the worst part? Overthinking feels productive. It tricks you into believing that you're making progress when in fact, you're doing the exact opposite. You're stalling, you're wasting time, you're stuck in a loop of what ifs and maybes, and instead of moving forward, you stay frozen in the same spot watching life pass you by. Here's the truth you need to hear. Clarity does not come from thinking, it comes from action. You cannot figure everything out in your head before you take the first step. It doesn't work that way. The only way to know what works and what doesn't, the only way to gain real confidence, the only way to get unstuck is to do something, anything. But overthinking convinces you otherwise. It whispers in your ear, telling you that if you just think about it a little longer, you'll find the perfect answer. That if you wait until you feel 100% ready, then you'll finally be able to move forward. That if you just analyze the situation from every possible angle, you'll eliminate all risk. Lies. Every single one of them. You will never feel completely ready. You will never have all the answers. You will never be able to predict the future. But you don't need to. Think about it. How many times have you wasted hours, days, or even weeks agonizing over a decision, only to realize later that all that stress was unnecessary? That whatever you were so afraid of did even happen, or that even if it did, you handled it just fine? Overthinking is not protecting you. It's not making you smarter or more prepared. It's just keeping you small. And let's talk about the cost. Because overthinking isn't just mentally exhausting, it's stealing your time, your joy, and your potential. While you're busy running mental circles around a decision, someone else is out there actually doing the thing. While you're second-guessing yourself, someone else is taking action and learning along the way. And guess what? They're growing. They're evolving. They're getting better. Meanwhile, you're still in the same place. Not because you're not capable, not because you're not talented, but because you're allowing overthinking to keep you on the sidelines. It's time to break the cycle. So, how do you stop? How do you shut down that endless loop of doubt, fear, and indecision? First, recognize it for what it is. The moment you catch yourself spiraling into overthinking, stop. Call it out. Say to yourself, I'm overthinking again. Awareness is half the battle. Second, set a decision deadline. If you give yourself unlimited time to decide, you'll take unlimited time. Instead, give yourself a strict time limit. I will decide by 5 p.m. today. I will take action in the next 10 minutes. I will not spend more than 24 hours on this. The faster you decide, the faster you move forward. Third, take one small action immediately. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be something. Send the email, make the call, sign up for the class, post the thing. Whatever it is, do it before your brain talks you out of it. Because here's what happens when you act. The moment you take action, the fear starts to lose its grip. You realize that the world doesn't end, that you can handle whatever happens next, that most of the things you were worrying about never actually come true, and suddenly momentum kicks in. One action leads to another, and before you know it, you're moving forward. You don't need more time to think. You need courage to act. So stop overthinking. Make the decision. Take the step. Your future is waiting for you, but you have to be brave enough to walk toward it. You are waiting for the perfect moment, and it's keeping you stuck. You tell yourself, I'll start when I have more time. I'll go for it when I feel ready. I'll take action when the circumstances are just right. But here's the truth. That moment you're waiting for, it's never going to come. And I need you to really hear this, because if you keep waiting for the perfect conditions, you will spend your entire life waiting. Years will pass, and you'll still be standing in the same spot, holding on to a dream that never became reality. Not because you weren't capable, not because you didn't have what it takes, but because you convinced yourself that you had to wait for the stars to align before you could begin. It's a lie. There is no perfect time. There is no magical moment when everything falls into place and you suddenly feel ready. That's not how life works. Life is messy. Timing is never ideal. You will always have fears, doubts, and uncertainties. But none of those are reasons to stay stuck. Think about all the things you've put on hold because you were waiting for the right time. How many opportunities have you let pass by? How many dreams have you pushed aside? How many times have you looked back and thought, if I had just started back then, I'd be so much further ahead now? Waiting for the perfect moment is nothing more than a disguised form of procrastination. It's fear dressed up as logic. Your brain convinces you that you're being smart, responsible, strategic, but in reality, you're just delaying. You're keeping yourself comfortable. You're avoiding the discomfort of stepping into the unknown. And let's be real, deep down you already know this. You know that if you had started 6 months ago, a year ago, 5 years ago, your life would look completely different right now. But instead, you let excuses run the show. You let fear hold you back. You told yourself, not yet. And here you are, still waiting. So when will it be the right time? When will you finally decide that you are ready? Because here's the truth. Readiness isn't something you wait for, it's something you create. You create readiness by taking action. You don't need to have everything figured out. You don't need to know exactly how it's going to work. You don't need the entire path laid out in front of you. You just need to take the first step. Because the moment you start moving, everything shifts. Think about learning to swim. You can read every book about swimming, watch every tutorial, and analyze every technique. But until you actually get in the water, you won't know what it feels like. You won't learn how to move, how to float, how to breathe. You only learn by doing. Life is the same way. You will never feel fully prepared. You will never eliminate every risk. But you don't have to. The only thing you need to do is start. And here's the best part. Once you do, you realize that all the things you were afraid of weren't nearly as scary as you thought. You realize that you're capable of figuring things out as you go. You realize that waiting was the only thing actually holding you back. So stop telling yourself that you'll start someday. Someday is not a day on the calendar. Someday doesn't exist. The only moment you have is right now. And right now you have a choice. You can choose to keep waiting, keep hesitating, keep making excuses. Or you can choose to take the first step. Even if it's small, even if it's messy, even if it scares you. Because the truth is, action creates momentum. The second you move, you break the cycle of procrastination. You step into possibility. You give yourself a chance to grow. So whatever it is you've been putting off, starting the business, writing the book, making the call, signing up for the class, taking the leap, do it. Do it before your brain talks you out of it. Do it before another year slips by. Do it because the only way to change your life is to stop waiting and start moving. Your future self is begging you to stop delaying. Listen, start now. You keep telling yourself the same limiting story, and it's controlling your life more than you realize. Every single day, whether you're aware of it or not, you are narrating your own life in your head. You are telling yourself stories about who you are, what you're capable of, and what's possible for you. And those stories, they shape your decisions, your actions, and ultimately your reality. Now, here's the problem. Most of us are telling ourselves stories that are filled with doubt, fear, and limitation. You say things like, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good with money, I'm just not that lucky, I always mess things up, I don't have what it takes. And the more you repeat these stories, the more you believe them. It's not that they're true, It's just that you've told yourself the same thing for so long that your brain accepts it as fact. And here's where it gets even scarier. Your brain is wired to prove your beliefs right. It's called confirmation bias. If you tell yourself you're bad at something, your brain will look for evidence to support that belief. If you tell yourself you always fail, you will subconsciously sabotage yourself to make that story true. If you believe you're not worthy of success, you will make choices that keep you from achieving it. It's not your circumstances that are holding you back, it's your story. Think about this. Two people can go through the exact same situation and come out with completely different perspectives. One person fails at something and tells themselves, I'm a failure. Another person fails and says, this was a lesson, I'll do better next time. Same event, different story. And because of that, their futures will look completely different. One stays stuck, the other grows. Now I want you to take a moment and really think about the story you've been telling yourself. What's the sentence that plays on repeat in your head? What's the excuse you always use? What's the thing you always say when you talk yourself out of taking action? Whatever it is, I want you to challenge it. Because that story, it's just a thought. And thoughts can be changed. Think about some of the most successful, inspiring people in the world. Do you really think they never had self-doubt? Do you really think they were born with some magic ability that made them different from you? No. The difference is they told themselves a different story. Instead of saying, I'm not ready, they said, I'll figure it out as I go. Instead of saying, I always fail, they said, every failure is a step towards success. Instead of saying, I'm not good enough, they said, I am capable and I can grow. And because they believed those things, they acted accordingly. They took risks. They pushed forward. They became the person they believed they could be. Now it's your turn. It's time to rewrite your story. Every time you catch yourself saying something negative about yourself, stop. Ask yourself, is this actually true? Or is this just something I've been telling myself for years? And then replace it with something new, something empowering, something that moves you forward instead of keeping you stuck. Instead of saying, I'm not good at this, say, I can learn how to do this. Instead of saying, I always procrastinate, say, I take action right now. Instead of saying, I'm not confident, say, confidence comes from action, and I am capable. At first, it might feel fake. Your brain will resist. That's normal. But the more you repeat these new beliefs, the more they will become your truth. And when you change your truth, you change your life. So stop telling yourself the same old tired story that's been holding you back. Create a new one that empowers you, one that pushes you forward, one that allows you to become the person you were always meant to be. Because the only thing standing between you and the life you want is the story you're telling yourself. Change it, and everything else changes too. You let fear make your choices for you, and it's keeping you from the life you deserve. Fear is powerful. It's wired into your brain for survival, designed to keep you safe. But here's the problem. Your brain doesn't know the difference between real danger and imagined danger. It reacts the same way whether you're facing a life-threatening situation or just stepping outside your comfort zone. And that's where most people get stuck. You feel fear, and instead of questioning it, you listen to it. You assume that if something scares you, it must mean you're not ready, that you're not capable, that something bad is going to happen. So you hold back, you hesitate. You stay where it's comfortable because that feels safer. But here's the truth you need to hear. Fear is not a stop sign. Fear is not a warning that you shouldn't do something. Fear is just a feeling, and feelings do not have to control your actions. Think about how many things you've avoided in your life just because fear showed up. How many opportunities you've let slip by. How many times you've talked yourself out of something because the thought of failing, being judged, or stepping into the unknown felt too overwhelming. But let me ask you this. Has staying comfortable made you happy? Has avoiding fear given you the life you want? Because let's be honest, staying in your comfort zone might feel safe, but it's also suffocating. It's repetitive, it's predictable. And deep down, you know you were meant for more than this. Look at anyone who has ever achieved something great, whether it's in business, sports, creativity, or personal growth. Do you think they were fearless? No, they felt fear just like you do. The only difference is they didn't let fear decide for them. They felt the fear and acted anyway. They understood that fear isn't a sign to stop. It's a sign that you're growing. And that's the shift you need to make. Instead of letting fear paralyze you, start using it as a signal that you're moving in the right direction. If something scares you, it probably means it matters to you. It probably means it has the potential to change you. It probably means it's exactly what you need to do. But how do you stop fear from controlling you? First, stop waiting for it to go away. Most people think they need to conquer fear before they can take action. That's not how it works. Fear never fully disappears. The only way to get past it is to move forward with it. To say, I see you, fear. I hear you, but you're not in charge. Second, shrink the fear by taking action. Fear grows in the space of inaction. The longer you wait, the bigger and scarier it feels. But the second you take one small step, just one, you start to realize that the fear was mostly in your head. The more action you take, the less fear controls you. Third, focus on the outcome, not the fear. Ask yourself, what if I do this and it works? What if this one decision changes everything? What if I'm capable of more than I ever imagined? Shift your focus from what could go wrong to what could go right. Because the truth is, your fear is probably exaggerating the worst case scenario while completely ignoring the best case scenario. And finally, remember this. Fear is temporary. Regret is permanent. You will never regret stepping up, trying, and pushing yourself, even if it doesn't go perfectly. But you will regret looking back years from now and realizing you let fear keep you small. So stop letting fear make your choices for you. Stop believing the lie that fear means don't. Fear means you're alive. Fear means you're growing. Fear means you're stepping into the person you were meant to become. Feel it and do it anyway, because your best life is waiting for you on the other side. You are seeking validation instead of trusting yourself, and it's costing you your future. Every time you hesitate to take action because you're waiting for someone's approval, you give away your power. Every time you hold back an idea because you're worried about what others might think, you let fear control you. And every time you stop yourself from pursuing something you truly want because you're afraid of judgment, you are choosing their opinions over your own potential. Think about that for a second. How many times have you stopped yourself from doing something, not because you didn't want it, not because it wasn't possible, but because you were afraid of what they might say? Who are they anyway? Most of the time, they are just people who are too afraid to go after their own dreams. They are people who don't have the courage to take risks, so they project their own fears onto you. And yet you let them dictate your choices. Why? Because from the time we were kids, we were taught to look outside of ourselves for approval. We learned to raise our hands and wait to be called on. We learned that gold stars and praise meant we were doing well. We learned that success was about being accepted, about fitting in, about making others happy. But here's the truth. If you spend your life waiting for permission, you will never move forward. No one is going to come along and say, you're ready now, go for it. That's your job. You have to decide. You have to be the one to step up and say, I don't need anyone's approval to go after what I want. Because if you keep waiting for validation, you will stay stuck. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you made a decision purely because you wanted it, without checking what someone else thought, without asking for advice, without seeking reassurance? Just trusting yourself. If you can't remember, that's a problem. And I get it. I really do. It's natural to want to be liked. It's normal to want support. But if your need for validation is stronger than your belief in yourself, you will never live life on your terms. You will play small. You will make choices that keep others comfortable instead of making you happy. You will let other people's opinions set the limits on your potential. And do you know what's crazy? Most of the time, the people whose opinions you're so worried about, they're not even thinking about you that much. They have their own lives, their own problems, their own fears. And yet you are shaping your entire future around imaginary judgments from people who won't even remember what you did 6 months from now. So what do? How do you stop seeking validation and start trusting yourself? First, catch yourself in the act. The next time you find yourself hesitating to do something because you're wondering what someone else will think, stop. Ask yourself, would I still want to do this if no one's opinion mattered? If the answer is yes, then do it. Second, give yourself permission. Write it down if you have to. I give myself permission to go after my dreams. I give myself permission to take action without needing approval. Say it out loud, because sometimes the only permission slip you need is the one you give yourself. Third, start making small decisions on your own. Get in the habit of trusting yourself. What do you want for dinner? What project excites you the most? What feels right for you? The more you practice choosing for yourself, the easier it gets. And finally, remember this. The only person who has to live with your choices is you. At the end of the day, you are the one who has to wake up every morning and live with the life you've created. So do you really want to create a life based on what they think, or do you want to build a life that makes you proud? Because the only person who can give you permission to live fully, to take risks, to go after what you want, is you. Stop waiting for someone to tell you that you're good enough. You already are. Now act like it.